This is the Four Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. We're taking it back to the roots, getting dirty and covering all things off-road, because pavement, well, that's for it's gloves off, in your face, on the edge, and the way off-road should be. We're your definitive source for all things dirt.
4WP is more than a store. We're truck and Jeep experts and have been for over 50 years. From wheel and tire upgrades to full custom builds, 4WP has you covered. Whether you want to order the best parts online or shop in store, do the work yourself, or get it done by a pro, all roads lead to 4WP. Do your rig right. Shop online or find your store at 4WP.com.
Welcome to the Four Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. Yeah, we are rocking and rolling today, and, I am en route to the PRI show in Indianapolis to do, I don't know, what do I do? I guess I'm sitting on a couple of panels on marketing and sponsorships and such, so should be a really, really good time there in Indy doing that. But all that being said, we're kind of changing up the schedule with my three shows: Project Action, the Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, and then the national show, and kind of doing a look back at 2019, some of our favorite interviews. Well, we started the off-road edition after this interview dropped on the national show, and I think it was right after KOH. It may have slipped through the cracks, people still traveling home, things like that. And, all that being said, it was a really, really good interview with your king, Jason Scherer. So I decided, we are going to bring this interview back. It's about 30 minutes long. We talk about the industry, KOH. We talk about a bunch of different stuff. And I think, anybody that's a fan of off-road, they're going to appreciate this interview. And I just thought, you know what? It kind of probably got slipped through the cracks, and at some point we need to redrop this because I think a lot of people missed this one, and you're really going to enjoy it. So this week it is Jason Scherer on the show. I will do the disclaimer. This was recorded in February, literally the week after King of the Hammers, after he took home the title. So, all that being said, if we're talking about KOH and things that just happened in the upcoming 2019 season, that's why this was recorded back in February. But still, it's kind of an evergreen type interview. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So thank you for tuning in once again. If you haven't already, please go to iTunes, hit the subscribe button to the Off-Road Edition. Really helps us out if you subscribe. And if you really want to help us out, you'll leave a rating, 1 through 5 stars. Just click the button and leave us a star rating. Really helps boost us up those charts on iTunes. You can check me out at JimBeaver15 on social media. Always cranking. I know, obviously, I'll have a bunch of stuff dropping over the PRI show, things like that. So, man, it's been a crazy week so far. We got a lot of news to break to you in regards to my programs and stuff moving forward, and all of these shows and programs moving forward that you guys tune into online. But that's a story for another day. Right now, it's all about Jason Scherer, and we're going to roll right into that interview after this short commercial break. You want extreme performance, reliability, and the most fun you can have on four wheels? The Polaris RZR brings it to you. But you don't need to take my word for it. You can take theirs.
I'm Tanner Faust, and I choose the Polaris RZR because it's the most fun you can have with a steering wheel.
What's up? I'm Ronnie Renner, and I choose Polaris RZR because it's the sickest, most reliable side-by-side on the planet.
What's up, everybody? Heavy D from Diesel Brothers. Listen, I'm on Team RZR because it's hands down the best piece of machinery on the planet.
I'm RJ Anderson, and I choose Polaris RZR because it's the most fun, most capable machine.
Action sports stars, TV personalities, and some of the best race car drivers in the world all choose Polaris RZR because it's the ultimate combination of power, suspension, agility, and fun. Find out more information on the web at PolarisRZR.com or follow at Polaris RZR on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and use the hashtag RazorLife to share your story. When looking for a new wheel for your off-road vehicle, car, truck, or UTV, the choice is easy. You choose what the pros use. Rob McCachran, Keegan Kincaid, and myself, Jim Beaver, all exclusively use Vision Wheel, whether we're dominating Baja, taking the cup at Crandon, or shredding UTVs. Vision Wheel's trend-setting designs and durability will set you apart from the competition and your friends. Check out VisionWheel.com or at Vision Wheel on social media to learn more. Anywhere is possible. It's more than just a slogan. Anywhere is possible with General Tire's wide variety of tires for whatever it is that you drive. Whether you're looking for off-road capability balanced with impressive on-road performance or ultra-high performance offering all-season traction designed with a driving enthusiast in mind, General Tire has what you need to get where you're going. General Tire, providing anywhere is possible with the Down and Dirty Radio Show since 2012. Do you race or are you a weekend warrior? Have you checked on the date on your helmet recently? Don't get caught off guard by using an outdated helmet. Impact Racing, the leader in motorsport safety, has new SA 2015 helmets to fit your budget. Whether you're looking for a helmet with a full carbon fiber shell to take you to victory at the Indy 500 or just looking for some helmets for a weekend at Glamis, Impact Racing has a helmet for you. Find out more information at impactraceproducts.com or on Facebook at Impact Safety. Super ATV is the industry leader in aftermarket UTV and ATV parts and accessories. Super ATV products are designed, engineered, tested, and manufactured right here by Super ATV. Whether you're looking to upgrade your suspension, get stronger axles, or you're looking for a new winch to get you out of a tough spot, Super ATV has what you're looking for. And since we know you're in a hurry, we offer fast, free shipping to the lower 48 states on all orders. Visit superatv.com now and get your UTV or ATV dialed in. I'd like to welcome Jason Scherer to the show, the 2019 King. How's everything going, Jason?
Everything's good. Thanks for having me on, man. I still the dust is still settling over here as we're unloading everything, but man, I couldn't be more happy to be, able to repeat this thing and be the first person to ever win back-to-back King of the Hammers.
Yeah, that's I mean, to me, that's just. It's crazy, 3 of them. And, for anybody that hadn't been out there, man, it's such a brutal race. And I know we've been talking about it on the show the past week or two. And, the thing about King of the Hammers is obviously you've got to have your prep. You got to do your homework and things like that. But there's so much luck that gets involved. I mean, you can get to a section and there can be a bottleneck there or – there's so many things that are out of your control, and no matter how much you pre-run, the course changes even over the course of the race, and rocks get moved, and to win 3 of them, I don't think people understand, especially back-to-back, how hard it is because of the luck factor that's involved.
Well, you know what? You said it totally right, Jim, because we actually in the car always say that you have some things that you can control in the race, right? You can control your strategy, your pace, how you take care of the car. There's things that are within your control, but then there's also things that we just know you have nothing that you can do about it. And lap traffic is one of those things. It doesn't matter where you qualify, you're going to end up encountering people on the trail. And, for the most part, the people who are going to be in front of you as lappers, they're going to take the good line. So that means you're going to be relegated to the tougher line. And that happened to us. We actually were following a guy. He took the good line and he took it a little too high and he rolled over right in front of us. And I think those are those moments that sort of define the race because, how we handled that under pressure was, kind of dictated how we were going to be if anything else popped up, right? If we had gotten really flustered and been like, oh my God, this just happened right in front of us, what are we going to do? It could really change the way your demeanor is for the rest of the race. Instead, we said, hey, you know what? I think we can take this line over here on the right. You want to hop out and winch it? And my co-driver, Jason Berger's like, great idea. Let's do it. And, on you go. It was 3 minutes is all we lost right there. And then we said, hey, you know what? Let's continue to stay on our pace. And we'll see how we work out on this. And, you just keep charging along instead of trying to make it up. Because if you've ever raced in a race like that, that all your mistakes come when you try to make up time, right? You can only drive as fast as you can drive. You start trying to make up time and doing stuff that's kind of above, the 100% mark of where you can drive. And that's when you get the flats and the, ripping through bushes and hitting stuff that you don't see. And it can kind of go away quickly. But if you can, keep your calm, I think that you got a chance at it. And that's been a good way for us to at least to get these wins.
Well, in talking about that, you're talking about the lappers in front of you taking the good lines. And I know, from my experience in Baja, you want to find all the good lines when you're pre-running, right? But there's spots where that are known going to be problems. There's silt beds that are going to get gnarly. So you actually go and scout the bad lines, or you go and scout, the places where you can get out and get around people when there's going to be a problem. I mean, obviously you want to pre-run and find out where the good lines are, but when you guys are there, I mean, are you scouting those secondary lines? I mean, are you guys practicing on some of the bad lines just so you know how to take those when it comes to race day?
Yeah, it's funny, I think there's like a misnomer that pre-running is a lot of fun. I think people like think, oh, pre-running, it sounds so great. I want to go down and pre-run with you guys. And you're like, nobody would really want to do it after they hung out with us for a couple of days. Because here's the race course. It's only a 90-mile desert loop, and then it's about, I don't know, 60 miles of rock trails or something on that whole loop, right? Why does it take us 2.5 days to pre-run that when we can race the whole thing 3 laps of it in 6.5 hours, right? It doesn't really add up. But what we're doing is we're going out there and we're running all the alternate lines, and we're marking them in the GPS or remembering different things. And you're saying, this is the good line, this is the bad line, but this would be a passing line if it was a option where you needed to make the pass. And, that's a lot of homework that goes into, how it all goes down on race day. But it plays out, right? The homework pays results when the situations arise. And we've had lines we've never used that we said, we'll go over here if the situation ever arises. And it's like 6 years later, you use that line because the situation happened, right? That you were saying, if something ever happened right here, we know how to go around it right here. And, there's stuff that you will laugh about that's happened over the years. I mean, in 2009, for our first win, we started going down Resolution. We were the first person in the physical lead, and there was a car stuck in the middle of the trail. And I'm like, how did this guy get here? Well, he had gone the wrong way at like race mile 30. And we had finished the whole race course, and this guy went down Resolution and broke and was stuck in the middle of the trail. And I, was like, man, I think I can drive over his left tire and then drive up on his hood and drive over his car. And, I always remember my co-driver, same co-driver, Jason Berger. He's like, I hope he's not a big dude. You drive over his hood, he's going to be finding you at the finish line, Luckily, he was cool about it because he knew he had kind of gone off course and it was affecting the race, and was like, nah, man, go play through. But we got that one, and this year the same thing happened. Believe it or not, right? You only run outer limits and spooners, which is about the last 2 trails at the very end of the 3rd lap race. Well, here we have the physical lead, and we pull in there, and there's a dude broken with his winch cable going across the trail. And it's like one of the rules. You're not supposed to drive over someone's winch cable, and if they're broken, you're not supposed to really screw them up, right? And here's a guy that got going the wrong way and ended up on a trail where he wasn't supposed to be in the middle of the race. And I'm like, okay, and we found a high line around them and stuff. But some of it's you never expect it. And that's when you got to like not throw it away by trying to do something that doesn't make sense. And the rest of the time it's, if you've done your homework and you're prepared for it, I think that it puts you in a mental position to where when the situation arises, it doesn't fluster you, it doesn't get you out of sorts, and you can keep, making those, just executing on the plan. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, well, and, talking about this race, and I mean, obviously you've won 3 of them now, and I mean, you look and, from 2009 to 2018, I mean, it was almost a decade in between wins. I mean, how much harder is it now to get a KOH win than it was in the start? I mean, not to say it was easy in the start, but man, the fields are stacked. The competition is absolutely crazy out there. I mean, how difficult is it? Because everybody's bringing their A game. Everybody's doing their homework. You know what I mean? Everybody's been on those trails. They're open year round. Guys go out there and spend weekends in their vacation time just screwing around in Johnson Valley. I mean, how much harder is it now to get one of these victories?
Well, I mean, isn't that the truth, right? It's one of those things where in 2009, I mean, we almost lucked our way into the win. We were fast, but we didn't really know what we had done. I mean, and that's sort of the thing, right? At the time, you never had any idea how hard it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made the 2018 win so sweet, right? You literally had almost a decade between the 2 of them, and you proved that you still had it. Like, if it was a fluke the first time, the second one was redemption, and the third one was really like proof, like, hey, we're good at this. But we had a series of parts failures. We couldn't keep the car together. And I think that, I attribute our success recently to having the lucky chance of getting a crew chief with Adam McGow that just knows what he needs to do to keep a car together. And we just didn't. We were exactly what we were, the epitome of these KOH racers, the rock donkeys, as you'll call them, right? Like we just didn't know. And you look at the level that the trophy trucks are at, and we didn't even see the little tricks. We didn't see all the stuff they were doing because it was just, too far out there from my standpoint. Now I see it, and I see the quality of the prep and the thoughtfulness in it, and I'm getting it, right. And it's like, okay, and a lot of people are like, it's crazy you won back-to-back KOHs. I actually think that the fact that we have 4 podiums in a row at KOH to me is more meaningful in a lot of ways, because maybe we didn't have a perfect race and we didn't get everything that we should have gotten out of a couple of those, but we had the car that could finish the race without any major mechanicals and with all that stuff. And that's prep, right? That's car prep. And I got a lot of personal satisfaction from hearing, Justin Lofton and his crew chief come over to our car when they were down there for the T1 race, whatever they call it. They were down there and they were in our pit. They shared the pit. It was the Fox car on BFGs and methods, right? We shared the pit together for his race. And he looked at our car and he's like, dude, I don't know what I was always under the impression of, but your car's a real race car. And I'm like, thanks, I guess, I don't know, but it's true, right? We were kind of backyard mechanic guys until we got the right program. And since we built this car, it's been it's the same motorsport quality parts that everybody else is running in all the other forms of top motorsport. And I think that just, goes along with it. But we had a struggle for years on attrition and success from parts failures and maybe some driving mistakes, maybe driving the cars too hard for the parts that were there, which I attribute to lack of testing, right? If you can't test it because you don't have the time, you don't know what the lifespan of the part is. And like you said, guys are going out there on their weekends. I mean, we're one of those guys that we were down there, battling cold weather and you name it, trying to get out and do durability testing for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles, if not thousands, to try to go out there and say, okay, what's the next part that's going to fail? What do I need to do to pick up the pace? And then I think when you come down to race week and you know what you've got to, what the car is capable of, it's a matter of sticking to that game plan, not abusing it, but continuing to run it at that pace. And you're comfortable because you've got all those miles under your belt. You're not learning the thing for the first time. And, from my standpoint, that's huge. Some of these guys, I think Eric Miller, probably like the most naturally talented of all these guys. And I mean, he comes from the East Coast, drives out there for a week a year, and has one of the best average finishes of anyone that's ever been in the sport. He's a natural. I'm a practiced driver. I wasn't a natural. I'd never driven in the desert until 2008, right? And I needed to learn how to drive at speed. I was good at rock crawling, but I had no idea what I was doing when I got out there in the whoops. And he just jumps in there and he's got that natural capability. And some guys have that. I need the seat time. I need the practice. And I do love it. Like, it's still a passion that I love. I come back from practice and I'm like, man, I love doing this. What a great sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and, let's talk about that, because you talk about the sport. I mean, Ultra 4 cars, I've talked about this for years. First time I actually saw one on track. Somebody showed up at Lake Elsinore to Lucas Regional, like we're talking 8-9 years ago. And I was like, why are they bringing this rock crawler? And this is me like being just a dumb off-road guy, desert guy. And I'm like, why are they bringing a rock crawler here to Lake Elsinore? That's so stupid. And then I watch this thing run and I'm like, this thing's like a Pro 4 going around here. And,
I think it was Tom Ways, right?
Yeah, it just blew my mind.
Tom Ways, yeah.
Yeah, it blew my mind at the time. And I'm like, man, these things are real race cars. And then, I've got to know Shannon over the years, and he's become a good friend. And I've seen him take his Ultra 4 car to desert races. And I want to talk a little bit about, the Triple Crown last year, because these Ultra 4 cars, it's ridiculous how fast they are in so many varying types of terrain. I know last year, one of the things that I think was amazing that you were able to accomplish, obviously you won KOH, you went to the Mint. I think you took 4th at the Mint, and then you went to Crandon.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people back there in the Midwest weren't real familiar with the Ultra 4 cars, and I think you guys ran there, and people's minds were blown how fast you were around Crandon. You went and won Crandon. I mean, to me, that Triple Crown you won last year was – like, I don't know if a lot of people talked about it, but to me, that's something special, because it shows just the diversity and how well your car and you as a driver do in so many different things.
Well, and I really appreciate you saying that, because to me, that was like maybe the most, I don't know. It's really hard to put in words, but car setup is like something that I take pride in. Like, it's such a varied thing, right? The difference between a car that races King of the Hammers and a car that races Crandon they're the different spectrums of the world, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've all seen it. We've been around long enough we watched when they put on a show, I think it was maybe like 10 years ago in Vegas, they took all the trophy trucks and tried to run them in short course.
Yeah.
And I mean, with all due respect, it was almost embarrassing, right?
Oh,
like
it is.
The body roll and the lean, and they was like, this is there's a reason that they don't run short course in a trophy truck, and we would have looked fairly similar had we not put a lot of effort into the setup, and I think I liked that the most. Now, the Mint we wanted to do a little better at, but we just missed, and that was really because of that short time frame between KOH and the Mint. I missed on the setup, and I mean that's just flat out. We went there and tried to survive after we ran the first lap and said, well, this just isn't going to be good,
Yeah.
And so we got that fourth, which gave us a chance at least to go out and compete at Crandon to win the Triple Crown. And so we knew we had a lot of time for Crandon to get ready, and we were out practicing at Prairie City up in Sacramento at the Hangtown track, trying to really nail it. And it's a car that was built for rock crawling, and to go out there and just be a couple of seconds off the Pro 4 times, you're like, well, that's pretty impressive. You know what I mean? Now, granted, there's no motor rules, there's no, we weren't limited to cubic inches per pound and all that. So we had some, probably a little bit more cubes than some of those guys. And so, it's not telling the whole story, but they're still driven with automatics and not, X-Tracks, stuff. And so you break it down, you're like, well, it's not bad considering it's, the rear end's running on the coast side for high clearance on the drive lines, for being able to get through the rocks and all the stuff that are, contributing factors into being a less efficient drivetrain, and huge 30 series CVs from RCV and everything. All this stuff takes a lot of energy to turn. And so they're never going to perform like if you had built it for a purpose. But to get the shock package and the sway bars and the ride height and the, weight distribution, I mean, trying to lower everything down as low as we could in the cars to get them to not have that high roll center and stuff that they're kind of, the rock crawler stuff kind of has as its way of driving. It was really fun. And then we were limited to a 37-inch tire. They wouldn't let us go smaller so that we didn't turn into like wannabe Pro 4s, and so that we stayed differentiated from them. And, I would have loved to have seen what one of those, because if you watch those BFGs work out there on those, 35-inch tires that they cut, on the track for the right conditions, you're like, yeah, there's a lot of traction in those tires. So it would have been fun to at least run a couple of laps just to see what we had. But, I loved going there to Crandon. I loved the format of running all three races. I loved the Mint too. I wish I had been a little bit more prepared for it and maybe brought a rain jacket. But other than those two things, it was really a fun year last year with that. And it was one of those things. I'm so bummed they're not doing it this year, but I'm so glad that we were able to win it, because to me that's probably like something I'll never forget, is the ability to go out there and compete for that thing and be able to capture it, because I love that car setup stuff, and to be able to put it all together, I think that was like probably my favorite, thing, maybe even more than winning the second, or I guess it's the third, but winning this back-to-back thing, I think that actually might have meant more to me, Yeah.
Well, and talking about cars and setup, I mean, so far we've seen just a crazy evolution in what are Ultra 4 cars. But, looking at where we're at now and then moving forward, I know for the longest time it was IFS versus, independent front suspension everybody thought was, the future. And, there's guys that go back and forth one way or another. But, I mean, where we're at now, I mean, looking forward, I mean, what's the evolution of an Ultra 4 car? What are we looking at like 5 years from now, Jason? I mean, what's next for these things?
That's a really good question. So, I don't know if you follow the Mason trucks that have come out with like the portal front end setup.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure what Bryce's truck has in the front of it, but there's a couple of people, Cody Wagner that owns Laser Nut, Jordan Pellegrino just built a new car. These portals give you the ground clearance you want, but it also allows you to move that A-arm up so it's not dragging in the dirt.
Yeah.
And, from the clearance standpoint, I can see that huge advantage. It's tough. I think all those guys, I think Cody Wagner, he put the money down, he put the effort into it. He's been out there testing. I know his car works really, really well. It's hard when you're on the bleeding edge because you're making all those parts one-off first time. He's got Wiseman building parts. He's got X-Track building parts. He's got all these people building parts. one-off to try to make all this stuff live. 74 weld Quinn, he's got parts on him. I mean, all this stuff is just, really tough to develop because the conditions are so brutal, and it's so hard to test it in a real-life simulation before the race. And, all those things adding up, it makes it really hard to say this is the direction. But I'm pretty sure, like with a high degree of confidence, that you're going to see that portal setup give us the ground clearance in the front, at least, to travel with a little bit more speed through the rocks and not lose the center of gravity in the car. If you look at our cars right now, the chassis aren't built with a level base to the front end. There's actually like a 4 to 6 inch drop, depending on who the chassis builder is, to get down to the front bulkhead. With the portals, you can basically use that distance and make the chassis pretty much flat. So you don't really lose your center of gravity, but you gain ground clearance. And so I can see that being an advantage if they can get the parts durability to live up to it all. And, the materials now, they're able to build this stuff. It didn't add so much unsprung weight that the car works terribly, right? And it's all relevant, right? I mean, there's guys running solid front axles. They're a lot heavier than, the axle itself is a lot heavier than the IFS cars, where they've got just the chicken wings hanging out there, and that's all they've got to hold up. But we'll see. I think the time will tell on that stuff, but I do think that's the direction it's going. I'm still not sold that it's the KOH is a big, huge, high horsepower race. I think that the horsepower is really good for qualifying in that first lap. But, I think that a smooth running package is almost outweighing these guys with really, stump pulling motors and everything. I don't know that that's where it's going to head, because I don't think that you're not going to see somebody win because they had 1,000 horsepower. I think, you're still going to see a guy win because his car's working better in the rocks and in the desert than the other guy, which is kind of cool because that keeps the budget a little bit reasonable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not throwing money at motors all day.
Yeah.
That's probably not true of the rest of the series. You go out to Stampede or Reno or whatever, and it's like, the motor gets you to the finish line. So, it's not, the whole series isn't that way, but at least for KOH, I think it's neat to see that it comes down to still some innovation. And I think that there is some coming, I think that's really cool. And then, secondarily, Fox has got some ride control stuff going. And while I see it paying huge dividends in the desert for guys, right, where you're able to adjust the ride, you get into San Felipe, you can, make that thing float. You want to get into the Alba Dry Lake bed, you tighten up the rebound, suck the car down to the ground. Like, that stuff's cool. I don't think it's going to be cooler anywhere than at the Hammers.
Right.
You're going across the desert, you got your desert set up, and then you get in the rocks, you open that stuff up and let it absorb everything that you're going down the trail and hitting rock-wise. And, it's a totally different world in that car right now. We've got such high spring rates and everything to keep the cars from hitting all the G-outs, while still allowing some travel in the rocks. And if they can tune the shocks inside the car to really open them up in the rocks, man, we're gonna be hitting those rocks so fast it's gonna start getting scary.
Well, you guys are, I got to tell you, I anybody that's been to Hammers and, walked around and, you watch on TV or watch on the internet, and you don't really get a feel for how big the stuff that you guys are going over. And so especially something like backdoor, you walk up to it and you're like, oh, wow, this is why they call it backdoor, and it's like, I think, the speeds you guys are hitting it at is for, as a guy who spent a lot of time in a trophy truck, like, I can't even comprehend like how fast you're hitting things. And I walk up and I look and I'm like, wow, they're actually hitting this at that speed. That's nuts. And like, to me, you talk about getting things going faster over it. I'm like, wow, like, how does it get any faster?
Oh, I agree. And, it kind of worries me a little bit. I'm sort of at my capacity inside the car. I mean, you always say that, but it's like, I'm not sure. I said this with dirt bikes for years, I ride to the ability for myself to process the terrain. And it was never like, oh, you're going to win a GNCC race. It was like, no, you're at, maybe you get a gold in an enduro, you're a top 20 somewhere down the road in a GNCC race, right? Yeah. But these guys that can process the terrain that fast are going to be able to, pick up the pace and do that. And we'll see. Maybe we'll be able to stay for 5 years at that speed or whatever with those guys. But I already see it. These kids, how guys like Eric Miller are hitting this terrain at that speed, it blows my mind. In a solid axle car, I'm pushing in an IFS car in the desert, and he's right there with you in a solid axle car, and I'm like, there's no way. I mean, it's like they should be 3 classes apart in a desert race, and he's right there with you. So it's cool, how it's all making the waves. But I will go back to 2009. There was a guy named Easy Rick Mooneyham, and he passed us going down one of the trails. It was Wrecking Ball, and he was skipping the tops of the rocks. And I was like, oh my God, I've never seen anybody drive through rocks so fast that they're literally hitting them like whoops and staying up on top of them. And, that was the first time I was crawling the rocks like a rock crawler would all the way through the whole Hammers Trail back in 2009. And when I watched them do that, I was like, that's absurd. And then it works, and you're like, okay, I guess this is how you do it, and once you got the education, you could really never unlearn it, that's what you had to start doing. And, now you're flying through those rocks and everything, but, it's no different. I don't think. I think that the trophy truck's hitting some of those G outs where you look at them and say, there's no way you can stay flat out across that. And they're hitting it and you're going, oh, the load that they're absorbing in that G out is just, phenomenal. And the truck flies straight out of the hole and you're like, it's amazing. And I think the same thing's starting to happen with the rocks. We're getting into those rock sections and they're flying through them. And you're like, oh, if you hadn't tuned a car for that specifically just to be able to do that, it would never do it at that speed. But yeah, I think if you could get some more, compliance with some ability to adjust the shocks, you could go even faster. And, as the tires get better and better, I think we'll see it. I really do.
All right, Jason. Well, I appreciate the time, man. We are up against the time break here, but it was great catching up. I feel like, dude, I got so many questions. One of these where I think I need to come back with you in like a couple of months, and we do it like a full podcast, just sit down and talk. Because, dude, I got so much to pick your brain about. But I appreciate the time, my friend.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, Jim.
Life is all about sound. The sound of sports, the sound at the racetrack, and the sound of your vehicle. Don't drive around listening to this. Drive around listening to the sound of performance. Gibson Performance. Gibson Performance Exhaust is the company who can turn this into this. Remember that life is all about sound, and Gibson Exhaust is the sound of performance. Check out your next catback exhaust system, headers, muffler, or UTV exhaust at GibsonPerformance.com and get more power and more sound.
Looking to have some fun on 4 wheels? Dirtfish Rally School has you covered. Packing as much adrenaline and adventure as you can handle into high-performance all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive Subaru rally cars is where the fun begins at Dirtfish. Just 30 minutes outside of Seattle and Snoqualmie, you'll get a chance to train up to 3 full days with some of the country's best instructors and be put through the high-octane rush of rally on mud, dirt, and tarmac. Get started today and call 425-888-7715 or visit us online at dirtfish.com and use code 911 for a 15% discount. Welcome back here to the 4 Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. Hopefully you enjoyed that interview with the King, Jason Scherer, 3-time King over there at King of the Hammers. I'm looking forward myself to being out there, racing at King of the Hammers and my brand new General Tire Polaris RZR. We're building out for it. But thanks for tuning in. I am obviously en route to PRI, so if you are at the PRI show, swing by, say hey. If you're at one of, I posted up some times and stuff like that on my social media. But figure it out if you want to come to an amazing sponsorship summit, not sponsorship summit, but seminar on on all things sponsorship and marketing and motorsports. It's going to be good stuff there at PRI show. Fortunate to be sitting on the panel with Matt Martelli, Alex Striller, and Henrique Cisneros from the Momo Weld Corporation, Mitchell DeYoung, and quite a few others. It's definitely going to be a good time. So, check it out. Check us out on iTunes. Hit the subscribe button. Please leave a rating, 1 through 5 stars. Much appreciated for those of you who've done. I am at JimBeaver15 on social media if you want to follow along in my shenanigans. And got to thank our friends at 4 Wheel Parts. Check them out at 4WP.com. Polaris RZR, General Tire, Vision Wheel, Dirtfish. Use the coupon code DOWNDIRTYDF. It'll get you 15% off at Dirtfish, not only just during the holiday season, but any time of the year. Gibson Exhaust, thanks to them for the continued support. Impact Racing, they got some great stuff going on for the holidays, too. If you need some helmets, some suits, some driving gloves, seats, harnesses, whatever you need, they will get you dialed in. And what a great Christmas present Impact would make, as well as our friends at Super ATV. Got all those UTV accessories. get you locked and loaded, get your UTV program on point there at Super ATV. So thanks to all our partners and, the continued supporters of the show. We've also got Racing Junk, our friends at iRacing, and a bunch of others who help make things happen here on a weekly basis. So thanks to you listeners for tuning in. I am headed to PRI, and we'll see you next week right here on the Four-Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR.
4WP is more than a store. We're truck and Jeep experts and have been for over 50 years. From wheel and tire upgrades to full custom builds, 4WP has you covered. Whether you want to order the best parts online or shop in store, do the work yourself, or get it done by a pro, all roads lead to 4WP. Do your rig right. Shop online or find your store at 4WP.com.